Since my lawnmower is nearly 30 years old, I decided it was time to finally give the transmission some attention. I wasn't having any trouble with it, but I'd like it to last another 30 years. In this short video, I want to show you a few things I learned from this project so you can make a more informed decision in case you have to do this. There are a lot of videos and blogs on the internet that give ideas on what to use and how to do it. The most common suggestions were to use motor oil or gear oil as the fluid and to drill holes in the casing, one on the top for filling and one on the bottom to drain. After thinking about the pros and cons of this method, I decided on a different course of action. I wanted to use the same product that was already in the transmission, and I didn't want to risk any damage from drilling. When I looked at the transmission, I discovered it was actually very easy to take out and take apart. And as you can see, that was a good thing, because I was sure surprised to not find oil or gear oil inside, but grease. In hindsight, that all makes sense, but since I don't have any experience with these transmissions, I really didn't know. Opening the transmission not only allowed me to see which lubricant was used, it also allowed me to inspect all the parts to see how they were wearing. Since everything looked great, the only thing I really needed to do was to find out what kind of grease it was. It was tempting to assume it was just gray or black grease, but I suspected something different. It felt different, and there was an underlying yellowish tint to it, so I went online to see if I could find out more. It took a while, but I finally found a YouTube video where a mechanic mentioned that he was using bentonite grease, and I figured that must be it. The transmission looked so great after 30 years that I didn't mind spending $50 for a quart of the stuff. When the grease finally arrived in the mail, I did a test just to make sure that it did seem like the same grease. Once I was confident that it was, I continued with the project. I was tempted to use carburetor cleaner to clean the casings, but for some reason I had a gut feeling not to do that, so I only used rags and Q-tips. Since I don't have any experience with this gear system and I didn't really see the need to do so, I only removed some parts in order to get grease into certain areas, and I just spent a lot of time working it into all the crevices. When I took the transmission apart, I noticed a different material on the shifting mechanism. It was copper in color, so I took it to be anti-seize lubricant. I had some on hand, so I put a generous amount in the same locations. It was at this point that there was an obvious difference in how the gears moved. The new grease made it much tighter. The only real snag that I encountered on this project was working with this shifting mechanism. There is a small extension that protrudes on the bottom of the left-hand side of the shifting plate that fits into a guide rail just to the right of the chain. It wasn't until I put the cover back on the transmission that I found out I had a problem. For some reason, that mechanism was preventing me from securing the top of the case properly. After numerous attempts to figure out why and hours of research online, I finally decided to seek the help of a professional. I transported the transmission just like this to his local shop about 2 miles away. I explained the situation to him and he thought about it for a little bit. It was then he decided to hold down the mechanism and move the gears with his other hand. After turning the gears, that small extension on the bottom of the shifting plate in the guide rail fell into an indentation that I didn't know was there, and my problem was solved. When I got home, I cleaned the surfaces and put new gasket maker on, and I was all set to go. When tackling your own lawnmower, research your model thoroughly and seek advice from experienced mechanics when in doubt. Transmissions differ from machine to machine and year to year. From what I have learned from this project, my transmission was especially easy to work on due to its age and it not being hydrostatic. Good luck!